Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see about the dissolution of the monasteries in England. According to the Act of Supremacy, which was passed by the Reformation Parliament in 1534, King Henry VIII became the head of the Church of England. And this was opposed by many people, mainly by the monks who remained loyal to Pope. And therefore, Henry wanted to take revenge on them and he decided to dissolve all the monasteries in the country. The main reasons were that these monasteries had so much of wealth with them. The landed property alone amounted to one-sixth of all the cultivated land in the country, and they also had so much of wealth in their plates because all their plates were golden plates and their jewels and their robes and all that. And this was a great temptation for the king because the king was badly in need of money. Actually, when he came to throne, he had inherited a great fortune from his father Henry VII. But he wasted all the money on useless campaigns in France and on maintaining unprecedented pomp and show in the court. And one more reason was most of the monasteries had ceased to be centers of learning. Throughout the 15th century, there was not a single monk of outstanding scholarship. At the same time, these monks did not practice any aesthetic ideals like how their predecessors did in the early centuries. And the clergy were corrupt and pleasure loving, and naturally enough, all the people hated them. And this slowly but steadily led to the growing of anti-clericalism. That is, the people were against these people because they were so very corrupt. And great people like Chaucer and Wycliffe, who were pious Christians, gave them timely warning, but no one listened to it. A few years before the dissolution of the monasteries, the wish of the general public was indirectly expressed through a pamphlet named The Supplication of the Beggars, written in the form of an address to the king. And the pamphleteers in that suggested that the clergy, particularly the monks and friars, should be deprived of their wealth for the benefit of the king and the kingdom, and they should be made to work like other men. Even Erasmus, the most sober and accomplished of all the Renaissance scholars, had made fun of the corrupt clergy in his famous book Praise of Folly. And this new outlook was the result of the influence of Renaissance. In 1536, Henry VIII induced the parliament to pass the act of abolishing the monasteries, and he started by suppressing the smaller monasteries with endowments worth less than £200 a year. And in the very first year itself, nearly 400 such monasteries were dissolved. This actually sparked a riot among the pilgrimage of grace in the northern countries like Lincolnshire and Yorkshire, but it was soon subsided. Next, Henry ordered the dissolution of the bigger monasteries one after another, which surrendered without the least resistance. The heads of some monasteries raised objections to the new order of the king, but they were all ruthlessly dealt with. In that case, we find Abbot of Glastonbury was accused of treason and he was hanged in front of his own gatehouse, and this was actually a warning to those who dared to go against the royal's will. On 23rd March 1540, the last great abbey at Waltham surrendered and the destruction of monasteries was complete. Actually, the Henry VIII was planning to confiscate the chantries and other pious foundations, but he died before this. And this work was left to his younger son, Edward VI. According to G.M. Trevelyan, the number is said as 5,000 monks, 1,600 friars, and 2,000 nuns were sent out of the church. And they received pension from the government, which ranged from £25 to £1,000 per annum. And those who received the maximum benefit were the abbots of the great monasteries who had surrendered to the king without any resistance. The nuns were the worst treated than the monks because they were only given a gown by the king and they were left to find work or to live on charity. All the monks and friars under the age of 24 were absolved from the vows which they had taken on becoming the monks, and they were now free to get married and seek employment elsewhere. All the movable property like plates and jewels went into the royal treasury. Lands were transferred to the crown, but they did not remain in the hands of the king for a long time because the king had a lot of financial difficulties that were cropping up time to time, and therefore he was forced to sell most of the landed property to all kinds of buyers. The monastic loot was spent in three different ways. Part of it went into the royal coffers, some was used in endowing new bishoprics, and the rest was given to gentlemen as a reward for services or sold. The king's share was afterwards used to found Trinity College, Cambridge for fortifying the harbours and for building up the Royal Navy. People of all ranks came forward to buy the monastic property because land in Tudor England meant power and prestige, and for landholders had public duties thrust upon them by the king. And these people evidently became staunch supporters of the new religious movement, and that is why they refused to surrender their property when an attempt was made by Mary Tudor to revive Roman Catholicism in England. The power enjoyed by the clergy so long passed to this class of fortunate gentry. The suppression of popular centers of pilgrimage adversely affected the wealth and districts which are not in position to prosper as centers of industries and trade. For centuries, the preaching friars, both Franciscan and Dominican, were common sight on the roads of England. But now they disappeared completely and their place was taken up by Protestant preachers. In the loot which followed the confiscation of the monasteries, their valuable libraries were broken up and many irreplaceable manuscripts were lost. This was an irreparable loss to learning and literature. The poor could flock to the monasteries for help earlier, even though the way charity was dispensed was most unorganized and discriminate. Many of the dependents of the monasteries were thrown out of work, thus, the problem of poor became more acute, and it was obligatory on the part of the government to devise more effective measures to tackle the situation. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box, like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.